DoD Instruction 416028, Dod Demilitarization Program, Office of the Undersecretary of Defense Acquisitions Statement effective with November 30th, 2022. Clear public release available to the Director of the Division website at ESD of the White House Mail of the Department of Defense, Instruction 416028, the Dod Demil Program, April 7th, 2011, and as Menem Will LaPlante, Undersecretary of Defense Acquisitions Statement. Purpose in accordance with the authority Department Directive 513502 with accordance intent with the Section 1051 Public Law 105-261 known as the Strom-Thurmond National Defense Authorization Act of the official year of 1999 issuing with established policy against assigning responsibility for DMIL program, Department of Defense Demilitarization Program, or DMIL program, DMIL analysis, planning, execution, Department of Defense property demilitarization, mutilation before release from the DoD control of the demilitarization code, assignment accuracy, general issuance and information accurately possible, responsibility, Undersecretary of Defense for the acquisition, sustainment, Assistant Secretary of Defense for the sustainment, Director of Defensive Logistics, Director of the DSCA, Department of Defense Component Heads of Command and Coast Guard, Secretary of the Military Department, Command, Coast Guard, and glossary acronym definition references. Section 1, General Issuance Information, Accountability, Office of Secretary of Defense, Military Department, include the Coast Guard, all times include when administered of the Department of Homeland Security by the agreement of the Department, Office of Chairman, Joint Chief of the Staff of the Joint Staff of the Command, Combat Commands, Office of Inspector General of the Department of Defense, Defense Agency for the DoD Field Activity, other organization within the DoD referred to collectively issuing of the DoD component of the DoD personnel, property, control, possession of any organization identified in paragraph 11A, the DoD personal property possession other than organization of the DoD special programs defined in volume 3, DoD manual 416821, DoD security cooperation programs, security assistance programs administered by the Department of Defense, DoD personal property possession, federal agencies in accordance with the parts 101, 102, Title 41 Code of Regulations, 102 policy of the Department of Defense maintained with the Department of Defense demilitarization program to evaluate, support, execution for the demilitarization requirement of the Department of Defense, the DoD Special Program, the Department of Defense Security Cooperation Program, Security Assistance Programs administered by the Department of Defense Federal Agency, with the Department of Defense components administered for the demilitarization analysis, planning, execution, DoD programs, registry for the development, acquisition, management, sustainment, and maintenance for the disposition, release for the DoD personnel outside of the control of the DoD. Specifically permitted pursuant to the specific legal authority, DoD components can demilitarize the DoD personal property prior to release of the DoD control of the DoD personal property is identifies United States munition list of the Part 120 through 130, Title 22 CFR, identify the commercial control list of Part 77 and 4, Title 15 Code of Regulations, determine the significant military utility in accordance with Volume 1, Volume 2, DoD Manual 416028, except when permitted to pursue the specific legal disposition authority DoD components, mutilate personal property to the point of scrap before release from the DoD control, sensitive and non-sensitive CCLs or commerce control list, located in the United States and territories, sensitive to the commerce control list, in items inside of the United States and territories. DoD components will leave the DoD personal property with a commerce control list, issue items pursuant to the specific legal authority using established trade secret control, trade security control of the mentions in accordance with the Department of Defense Instruction 203808, the Department of Defense Directive of the DoD Personal Property to International Transfer in accordance with the policy pursued with the Department of Defense Instruction 204002 with the Defense Security Cooperation Agency with DSCA 5105-38M and other relevant DoD policies. Secretary 2 responsibility. Undersecretary of Defense for the acquisition sustainment, established policy appropriate on all matters pertaining to the DoD personnel of the demilitarization program. Assistant Secretary of the Defense sustainment under the authority, direction, control of the Undersecretary of the Defense Assistant of Sustainment and Assistant Secretary of Defense of Sustainment. Implemented with the DoD demilitarization program. The Director of Defense Logistics Agency under the authority, direction, control of the Undersecretary of the Acquisition Sustainment and the Assistant Secretary of the Defense Sustainment, and with addition responsible to paragraph 2.5, Department of Director of Defense Logistics Agency for the maintaining of the Department of Military Demilitarization Program Office, the maintaining of the Department of Defense Demilitarization Coding Management Office, with the Demilitarization Code accuracy in accordance with the intent section 1051 Public Law 105-261, support with the intent section 1051 Public 105-261 with the management control oversight of the Department of Defense Demilitarization Program coordinated with Assistant Secretary of Defense, sustainment with the Department of Defense component head, designated with the Department of Defense Demilitarization Program Management to provide guidance and identification of demilitarization DoD personal property for the prevent and authorize with the potential compromise of U.S. national security with the value of the Department of Defense Demilitarization Program deficiency of answer for the technology as needed the recommended change of the list of the defense article with the requirement of demilitarization and other controls and coordinated with the Defense Technology Security Administration of the Lead with the Technology Stakeholder of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense and Research Engineering, Office of the Undersecretary of the Acquisition and Sustainment in the military service, the chair meeting with the military service, the defensive agency of the demilitarization program, and administrative as required basis to discover the demilitarization procedural changes, potential policy impacts, and accordance with the under section 1051, Public Law 105-261, maintain the Department of Defense Demilitarization and Life Cycle Planning Center with the support of the DDPO, and according with the Department of Defense Demilitarization Program, and responsibility for demilitarization planning during the total life cycle of system management, and according with the intent of Section 1051, Public Law 105-261, maintain and appropriate Department of Defense Demilitarization Training Program, continuously evaluate, develop, and revise training curriculum for all the DoD components of the DoD special programs of the federal agency utilized with the Department of Defense personal property. Maintain update with the DoD Demilitarization Program website with the DLA.mil with what DLA Office of the Federal International Cataloging DMIL coding DMIL codes with current Department of Defense DMIL program information. 7. Review, take an appropriate action and request a waiver of modification, provide operational direction for the DDCMO DoD Demilitarization Code Managing Office, Mission Functions Integral with the DDPO and according with the intent Section 1051, Public Law 105-261, maintain the Controlled Property Verification Office with the Demilitarization Code cited with the DoD Personal Property Requirement Documents. Maintain the Department of Defense control property process with the identification verification of the demilitarized required of the Department of Defense personal property turned as past live of the DoD personal property turned in suspect local stock numbers. Maintain centralized defense of the logistic agency, the organizational capability to perform required physical demilitarization funded out of the biannual Department of Defense component with a reimbursement. Ship of the demilitarization instruction readily available location every defense of the logistic agency managed with the national identification number with the request such instruction with the demilitarization requirement terms condition. DoD contracts for the government to government with the training for the defense article, the direct for the defense of the logistic agency, center appointed with the knowledge individual to support the Department of Defense demilitarization program with the demilitarization administrator of the Department of Logistic Agency Supply Center. Director of the DSCA under the authority and control of the Undersecretary of Defense of the Policy in addition to the responsible paragraph 2.5 of the Director of the Defense Security Coordination Agency, Security Cooperation Agreements for the DDPO and responsible to issue with the demilitarization requirement that ensure the DoD policy procedure of the program and implement consistent U.S. foreign policy and national security objectives. Designated point of contact with the DDP with the Security Cooperation Organization of the Department of State with the DoD demilitarization program oversight. Directs the appropriate guidance for the regarding of the demilitarization requirement incorporated with the DSCA with the 510538M Security Cooperation Workforce Training Program. The DoD component head with the command with the Coast Guard with the DoD head with the command Coast Guard with the planned budget with the DoD United States Coast Guard personal property demilitarization requirement 3 of the total life cycle system management private identify the demilitarization requirement at all of the procurement actions supported with the organization provide training personnel with the demilitarization duties include the demilitarization code assignment administrative the management disposition skill the knowledge and need to perform physical demilitarization apply inventory control of the base on the assigned with control of the inventory of the code with the DoD U.S. Coast Guard personal property demilitarization requirement during all phases of the acquisition life cycle. Acquisition demilitarization requirement to provide with the terms and conditions assigned with the contract to identify the demilitarization requirement with the government to government transfer of the defense article of the term and condition with the DoD contracts before disposition demilitarization share with the Department of Defense property with reclamation capable with the internal supply of requirements of material shortage with the diminished manufacturing sources and material shortage in accordance with the Department of Defense instruction 424515 volume 3 3 of the DoD Manual 416021. 26. Secretary of the Military Department's Commandment of the Coast Guard of the Additional of the Responsibility, paragraph 2.5 of the Secretary of the Military Department, the Commandment of the Coast Guard of the Designated of the Demilitarization Program, the Ministry of the Support, DDP, and the Department of Defense Demilitarization Program oversight restrict with the military right over the U.S. Coast Guard. Require the appointment of individual knowledge demilitarization, serve of the demilitarization administrative support of the execution DoD demilitarization program, each inventory control player under respect of the military department. Support of the DoD demilitarization program oversight with the review of the provided demilitarization plan with respect of the military department, U.S. Coast Guard demilitarization program, the Ministry of the DDPDM, active requiring planning, perform physical demilitarization, sign on the appropriate demil code of every time of the item to DoD, U.S. Coast Guard personal property with the military department, U.S. Coast Guard management responsibility, including items with statistic responsibility have them reassigned with the requirement of the DoD and or the U.S. Coast Guard acquisition program and to apply with the demilitarization requirement during the entire system design process, prepare problematic procedure of the demilitarization plan and related documentation to establish demilitarization structure readily available. The location ever managed by the NIIN. They require such instruction. Let's roll the DoD Demilitarization Code Challenge Program established in Volume 1 of DoD Manual 416028. Collaborate the Department of Defense CMO Code Defensive Demilitarization Code Management Office Code Corrections. Identify demilitarization requirement, terms, condition, DoD component, U.S. Coast Guard contracts, identify demilitarization requirement, indicate with the demil code, when with available documentation, demil, plan to defense, security, cooperation, agency and support, security assistance program, case development, and oversight. Glossary, ASDNS, Assistant Secretary of Defense and Sustainment, CCL, Commercial Control List, CFR Code for Regulations, DDCMO, DoD Demilitarization Code Management Office, DDPM, DoD Demilitarization Program Manager, DDDPO, DoD Demilitarization Program Office, DMIL, Demilitarization DL, Defensive ELA, Defensive Logistics Agency, DODI, Department of Defense Instruction, DSCA, Defense and Security Cooperation Agency, ICP Inventory Control Point, NIIN, National Item Identification Number, TSC, Trade Security Control, U.S. Coast Guard, USCG, United States Defense Acquisition and Sustainment, USDANS, that terms and let's look at the references. These are neat. Code of Regulation, Title 15, 22, and 41, Defense Security Cooperation, Security Assistant Management Manual, Defense Acquisition System, DoD Policy Responsibility relating to security cooperation, under Security Defense Acquisition Sustainment, Implementation, Trade Security Control, Transfer of the DoD Personal Property of the parties outside of the DoD control, International Transfer of the Technology, Articles, and Service, Diminishing Manufacturer Source and Material Shortages, Federal Logistic Information System Procedures, DoD Supply Chain Material Management Procedure, Inventory Accountability, Special Management Handling, Defense Material Disposition, Utilization, Transfer, Sales of Property, Defense of the Demilitarization Program Administration, Defense, Demilitarization Procedures, Strom Thurmond, National Defense Authorization Act for official year 1999. Okay, and that was DoD Demilitarization Program, Department of Instruction 416028.